Radical change doesn't come from one big decision. It comes from the small ones, repeated with intention. The ones that happen before sunrise when no one's watching. The ones you make when no one is cheering and it's easier to hit snooze, to delay, to wait. The truth is, the transformation people dream about, the powerful, life-altering kind, isn't created by inspiration alone. It's built one daily choice at a time. And it starts with getting honest about what you really want and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. Intentional choices are not random acts of willpower. They are decisions aligned with your vision. When you decide that your health matters, you don't just think about eating better, you choose the water instead of the soda. You lace up your shoes and go for a walk when the couch is calling your name. When you decide to protect your focus, you don't just wish for fewer distractions. You silence notifications, clean your workspace, and commit to the task in front of you. These may feel small, even insignificant in the moment, but they are the foundation of everything that follows. Most people think change is about intensity, about a burst of motivation that sweeps in and rewires everything. But the people who actually change their lives know it's about quiet, consistent action. Motivation fades. Discipline remains. And the beautiful thing is, discipline isn't a trait you're born with. It's a muscle you build. You build it every time you do what you said you'd do, even when it's hard. You build it every time. You prioritize growth over comfort. The reason daily choices matter so much is because they are cumulative. One good decision won't change your life, but 30 days of showing up differently will. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. Each time you choose differently, when you choose presence over procrastination, learning over scrolling, courage over avoidance, you are casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. And the more votes you cast, the more your identity begins to shift. You stop being someone who's trying, and you start being someone who simply is. And there will be resistance. Your old self will whisper every excuse in the book. It's just one day, you can start tomorrow, this isn't really a big deal. But the truth is, it is. Every choice either reinforces your future or repeats your past. And when you understand that, you stop letting small decisions slide. You start treating the little moments like the big ones, because they are. They're the blueprint for the future. The beauty of intentional daily choices is that they put the power back in your hands. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change. You don't need anyone's permission. You get to decide how you show up, how you respond, how you grow. You get to reclaim your time, your mindset, your habits, all one decision at a time. And as you stack these decisions day after day, you create something unstoppable. You build momentum. You build belief. You become the kind of person who keeps promises to yourself. And that changes everything. Radical change isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It's quiet, it's steady, it's built in the dark and revealed in the light. And once it starts, once that switch flips, the world won't recognize you, but you will. You'll recognize the strength, the discipline, the purpose, because you built it. One intentional choice at a time. Stop waiting for motivation or permission. That moment you're hoping for the perfect alignment of energy, inspiration, clarity, and encouragement rarely comes when you need it most. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for lightning to strike. It's unreliable, it's inconsistent, it keeps you stuck in a cycle of almost starting, almost committing, almost changing. But real growth, real momentum begins when you move without the emotional high, when you choose to act even when you don't feel ready. The people who get things done don't always feel motivated, they simply choose to show up. They've realized something powerful. Feelings are not a reliable compass. If they let their emotions decide when to work, when to pursue their dreams, when to take care of themselves, they'd be waiting forever. So they stop waiting. They started building a habit of doing, of showing up anyway, of creating their own spark instead of waiting for one to arrive. You don't need permission to chase the life you want. You don't need someone to validate your ideas or approve your timing. You don't need to be chosen, certified, or guaranteed success before you begin. The people you admire, the ones who are out there creating, leading, building, they didn't wait for someone to give them the green light. They gave it to themselves. They decided they were worthy of starting, and then they did. But there's something liberating that happens when you stop asking the world to tell you it's okay to go after what you want. You reclaim your power. You realize you are not behind, not too late, not unqualified. You're just one decision away from becoming the person who moves. And once you start moving, you create your own momentum. You build confidence through action, not before it. Confidence doesn't precede the work. It comes from the work. Too many people waste years overthinking, doubting, planning endlessly, waiting for the fear to go away. But fear doesn't disappear. It just becomes easier to carry when you start walking. The first step is the hardest because it forces you to confront the possibility of failure. But what if failure isn't the worst outcome? What if the real failure is spending your life in waiting mode, never knowing what you're capable of because you never gave yourself the chance? Every great journey begins with an imperfect step. Every powerful story starts with someone who dared to begin without all the answers. You don't need a fully detailed plan to move forward. You need to decide that your desire to grow is stronger than your fear of discomfort. Once you've made that decision, everything shifts. You begin to act from intention rather than emotion. You stop letting your temporary feelings sabotage your long-term vision. The truth is, you already know what needs to be done. You've known for a while. The goal isn't clarity anymore, it's courage. And courage isn't something you wait for either, it's something you practice. You practice it by sending the email, making the call, saying yes, saying no, setting the boundary, taking the leap. Each act builds your internal strength. Each one makes the next step easier. Waiting for motivation is like giving your future away to chance. But action, even small, shaky action, that's how you take it back. That's how you build discipline, confidence, and trust in yourself. Don't wait. Move. Speak. Begin. Because the life you're meant to live is not on the other side of permission. It's on the other side of action. Change rarely shows up in one grand moment. It builds quietly, subtly, through small, disciplined actions repeated over time. The habits that feel almost too small to matter are often the ones that lead to the most powerful transformations. It's the 10-minute workout when you don't feel like moving. It's the single-page read when you're tired. It's the choice to speak kindly to yourself, even when no one hears it. These moments don't make headlines, but they make all the difference. Small actions are often underestimated because they don't bring immediate results. There's no instant payoff, no applause, no dramatic before and after, but they are the bricks in the foundation of something unshakable. They stack. And the power of that stacking process is exponential. One healthy meal won't change your body, but 100 will. One morning of focus won't change your life, but the habit of focus will. Over time, the small decisions you make daily become the shape of your life. Discipline is what gives these small actions their power. Discipline means you do what you said you would, even when it's no longer exciting or convenient. It's how you prove to yourself that you can be counted on. Each time you show up, even when it's hard, even when no one sees it, you build internal trust. And trust in yourself is the foundation for everything else. Your goals, your relationships, your confidence. And your confidence, most people quit because they don't see instant results. They do the right thing for a few days, maybe a few weeks, and when the world doesn't shift overnight, they tell themselves it didn't work. But what they don't realize is that progress is invisible at first. Like seeds under the soil, nothing appears to be happening until one day growth breaks the surface. The shift doesn't just arrive, it reveals itself after enough consistent effort has been put in. That effort is what sets the entire process in motion. The beauty of small, disciplined actions is that they don't require perfect conditions. You don't have to be in peak form. You don't have to wait for the ideal time. You just need to show up and do the next right thing. That could mean writing for 10 minutes, saying no to a distraction, drinking a glass of water instead of grabbing another coffee. These acts might not look like much on the surface, but over time they shape your identity. You stop being someone who tries and start being someone who is. Someone who is focused, someone who is reliable, someone who follows through. Discipline also creates clarity. When you commit to the small actions, you stop chasing shortcuts and start respecting the process. You start seeing that every master was once a beginner who didn't quit. You begin to understand that momentum is earned, not given, and that the version of you who reaches your goals is simply the result of small, boring, disciplined days stacked on top of each other. And when the shift finally happens, when the effort compounds and the results begin to show, it's not a surprise, it's not luck, it's not magic, it's math. It's the sum of every small choice you made when no one was watching. It's the quiet work becoming visible. So don't wait for the dramatic, don't wait for the big break or the turning point. The real breakthrough is happening now, in the way you move, the way you choose, the way you show up, moment by moment. Small actions done with discipline don't just create progress, they create transformation. Your identity isn't set in stone. It's not written in your DNA or etched into your fate. It's built choice by choice, action by action, through habits you repeat day after day. What feels like just the way you are is often nothing more than a familiar pattern you've followed for so long that it became automatic. The late nights, the self-doubt, the second-guessing, the procrastination, the tendency to shrink yourself or play small. Those aren't fixed traits, they're habits, and anything built by habit can be changed by habit. People often cling to their identity because they believe it's who they are, but in reality it's who they've practiced being. If you've always seen yourself as inconsistent, disorganized, or fearful, it's likely because you've rehearsed those patterns over time, and just like you built them, you can unbuild them. You can rewrite what's familiar. You can create new rhythms. You can become someone different, not because you're faking it, but because you're choosing to grow. Growth doesn't mean erasing the past. It means realizing you are not defined by it. Just because you've always responded with doubt doesn't mean you're a doubtful person. Just because you've been quiet doesn't mean your voice doesn't matter. Those are behaviors, not your destiny. And when you understand that, you unlock something powerful. You stop being a prisoner of who you've been and start becoming the architect of who you want to be. Habits are powerful, not because they're impossible to break, but because they become invisible. You don't think about brushing your teeth, you just do it. The same goes for negative self-talk or avoidance. These responses get wired into your routine so deeply that you don't even question them anymore. That's where change begins. Not in fighting your past, but in noticing it. Once you're aware, you can decide. And every new decision becomes a vote for the future version of you. There's no magic switch that transforms you overnight. But there is something even more reliable: daily action. Every time you act in alignment with who you want to become, even if it feels uncomfortable or unnatural, you're breaking the mold of your old identity. You're telling your brain, this is who we are now. And over time, the resistance fades. What once felt foreign becomes familiar. What once required effort becomes effortless. The people who change their lives don't do it because they're better or luckier. They do it because they stopped accepting their old story as truth. They stopped saying, I've always been this way, and started asking, what if I practiced something different? That's the shift. That's the moment everything begins to change. You are not your patterns. You are not your routines. You are not your history. You are whatever you choose to repeat today. And if you want something different, you don't have to wait for a sign or a new year or a fresh start. You just have to start practicing differently. One habit, one belief, one brave step at a time. Talk is cheap. It always has been. Words can inspire, yes, but without action behind them, they dissolve into nothing. Promises, plans, intentions, they're only as powerful as the steps that follow them. Real change, real transformation is not declared, it's demonstrated. It doesn't come from announcing who you want to become, it comes from showing it over and over again, quietly, consistently, and without seeking validation. There's a point where speaking about your goals starts to feel like progress, but it isn't. It creates the illusion of movement while you stay exactly where you are. Telling people what you're going to do may feel good, but it doesn't move the needle. Action does. And the people who truly evolve don't spend their time convincing the world of what they're building. They're too busy building it. They don't need to explain themselves because their results speak louder than any explanation ever could. The most powerful shifts in identity are silent. No one sees the internal battles, the early mornings, the late nights, the small sacrifices, but that's where the work happens. Not in the post, not in the announcement, in the grind, in the decision to keep showing up after the excitement wears off, in the discipline to do what matters when no one's watching and there's no applause. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop trying to be understood and start focusing on being aligned. When you stop trying to sound like the person you want to be and start acting like them. It's subtle at first. No big aha moment of recognition, no dramatic unveiling, just choices, better ones, braver ones, made in private. And then slowly, things begin to shift, not just on the outside, but within. Your confidence starts to come from evidence, not imagination. You don't hope you're changing, you know you are. When you let your actions lead, you also become more honest with yourself. Because results don't lie, they reflect what you've done, not what you said you would do. They hold up a mirror to your habits, your consistency, your effort. And while that mirror may be uncomfortable, it's also powerful. It keeps you accountable. It forces you to confront what's working and what's not. And in that honesty, growth becomes possible. The world doesn't need another person with great ideas and no execution. It needs people willing to do the hard, unglamorous work. People who are willing to be misunderstood, underestimated, or even overlooked because they know where they're going. And they trust that in time, their actions will make it undeniable. The shift happens when you care less about being recognized and more about being real. When you stop broadcasting your journey and start owning it. When the focus shifts from what others think about your process to how deeply committed you are to the process itself. It's not that words don't matter, they do, but they should follow your footsteps, not lead them. Eventually people will notice, they'll ask, what changed? They'll wonder how you did it. And you won't have to say much, because the life you've built, the strength, the calm, the direction, the results will say it all for you. So keep moving, keep building, keep doing the work that most will never see, because in the end, actions are louder, stronger, and more lasting than anything words could ever promise. And the person you're becoming, let them be known by what they do, not by what they say. That's real power. 1 week of alignment with your future self can create momentum that takes you further than years of hesitation ever could. It's not about perfection. It's about commitment. It's about waking up and making decisions based not on who you've been, but on who you're becoming. Most people wait for the future version of themselves to suddenly appear, stronger, more focused, more disciplined. But that version doesn't arrive out of nowhere. It's summoned through choices. And when those choices start lining up, even for a short time, everything begins to shift. 1 aligned week means deciding to eat, speak, move, and think like the person who already lives the life you want. It's choosing to show up with clarity and purpose instead of excuses. It's acting as though your goals are not a distant dream, but a current responsibility. When your actions start reflecting your highest standard instead of your current comfort, your reality starts to catch up. Because the gap between who you are and who you want to be is bridged by behavior. Alignment isn't about pretending, it's about remembering. Remembering that you've always had the ability to rise, to refocus, to reset. You're not waiting to become someone new. You're choosing to return to the version of you that has always been capable, but maybe just buried under doubt, distraction, or delay. In 7 days of intention, the fog begins to lift. You stop needing outside validation because you're finally showing up for yourself. During this week, excuses lose their power, not because they disappear, but because your commitment becomes louder than your reasons to quit. You still feel tired, you still face resistance, but instead of giving in, you move forward. And that movement rewires you. You start to trust yourself again. You keep promises. You stop breaking your own heart with delay. You start taking your goals seriously, not because they're urgent, but because you finally realize they're worth it. Small, consistent actions are what bring the future into the present. 1 week of intentional choices compounds. You sleep better, you think clearer, you walk taller, not because everything has changed on the outside, but because you've started taking control on the inside. This internal alignment becomes your power source. And it doesn't fade when the week ends, it builds. It sets a new baseline. It shows you what's possible when you stop negotiating with your limitations. When you align with your future self, you're not chasing success, you're embodying it. You show up to the workout not because you love it, but because the strongest version of you doesn't skip. You shut down distractions not because it's easy, but because the focused version of you doesn't give time to what drains them. You speak with intention, not to impress, but because the impactful version of you knows their words carry weight. Everything becomes a reflection of who you've decided to be. 7 days may sound like a short time, but alignment makes it powerful. It creates a new rhythm, a new energy, a new story. And once you taste that kind of clarity, you don't want to go back. Not because you've become someone new, but because you've remembered what it feels like to live on purpose. You've experienced what happens when your choices are no longer controlled by your past or your circumstances, but led by your vision.